2026 Fashion Trends and Predictions. It's official, we're more than halfway through the decade. And if that realization sent a shiver down your spine, don't worry, you're not the only one. Thankfully, if there's one thing that you can count on no matter how much time passes, it's ModernGurlz. And for the 6th year in a row, we're going to be talking about some of the different fashion trends that we predict will be all the rage in 2026. Although trend predictions aren't an exact science, they are rooted in information and analytics, including a careful examination of influential figures, consumer shopping habits, social media trends, and the socio-political climate. Because we're identifying existing patterns, there's a chance that you've already begun to see some of the trends we'll be talking about, but for the most part, they still haven't hit the mainstream, unlike, say, corsets, hair bows, and ballet flats, which alongside other defining trends of the 2020s so far, won't be mentioned in this video, because they're just going to be sticking around. As always, the goal of this video isn't to make you throw out your entire closet in favor of something new. It's supposed to help you learn more about the history of certain fashion trends and the reason it might be making a comeback. It's important to remember that personal style isn't something you can buy overnight. It takes time, patience, and knowledge. You should only be adding something to your wardrobe if you genuinely like it, not because someone on the internet tells you that it's cool. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Grow Therapy. The new year brings with it a lot of stress. We're all told that we need to do this, be this, change this, and this expectation that we need to totally reinvent ourselves every January is honestly exhausting. So this year, I switched things up. And for my New Year's resolution, I decided to take a step back and focus on what I really need, which is mainly a better work-life balance. But it hasn't been easy, because I always feel this pressure to keep hustling, to keep grinding. Why do I deserve to take a break when there are a million other things that I could be doing instead? I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way, which is why having a support system that can remind you to slow down is so important. Because sometimes you don't even realize how burnt out you are until it's too late. And your mental health is just as important as your physical health. That's where Grow Therapy comes in. Grow is working to build a better kind of therapy, one that is easier to access and more affordable. What makes Grow different from other therapy services is that there are absolutely no subscription fees, no hidden commitments, and you always pay per session. Grow works with over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Most sessions cost around $21 with insurance, with some paying as little as $0 depending on the plan. Grow doesn't match you up with someone randomly either. You pick your own therapist, and you can filter from over 19,000 licensed and vetted providers to find the therapist that best fits your needs at the moment. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Grow makes it super easy to switch to a different provider. The best part about Grow Therapy is how it can adapt to fit your lifestyle, no matter how busy it is. You can book in-person or virtual sessions, morning, noon, or night, even weekends. So if you're interested in prioritizing your own mental health this year, give Grow a try. Just scan the QR code on screen or visit growtherapy.co/ModernGurlz to get started today. Now let's get back to the video. Brutalist architecture emerged in the United Kingdom in the wake of World War II, where the design style was a staple of reconstruction efforts. It had minimal decorations, with a focus more on functionality and the materials themselves, creating a look that was intended to emphasize equality while also being cost-effective. By the 1960s, brutalism had trickled into other design motifs, including the jewelry space, where the pieces were defined by their asymmetry and abstract nature. Various metals would be mixed together and combined with unusual stones to highlight their different textures, creating a one-of-a-kind look that felt more natural and organic. An added benefit of brutalist jewelry is that by incorporating multiple metals, gold and silver girls alike can enjoy the trend. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even have to be metal. With its hammered finish, obvious soldering, and flexible shape, there's a raw aspect to brutalist jewelry that comes across as both modern and ancient. These intentional flaws make it feel more human, less like a mass-manufactured piece that a machine pumped out in droves. As time passes, people who are in the know in general will want to wear things that feel connected to the human experience, something that had blood, sweat, and tears go into its creation. This will appeal not only to our innate desire to express our individuality and creativity, but will become a marker of taste and culture against the concept of mass-manufactured sameness in a world of AI. People around the world have been wearing headwear for thousands of years now. where they've been used as protection from the elements, indicators of social status, and as fashion statements. At different points in time, different types of hats have been popular. In the 2010s, it was all about beanies, berets, and bucket hats. In the 2000s, it was fedoras, snapbacks, and baker boy caps. In 2026, I think we'll see people move away from the styles that have already been popular in the 21st century, and instead take inspiration from the past, looking towards more formal headwear of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s as a way of appearing eccentric and subversive. This might include the likes of cloches, pillboxes, pinwheels, bumpers, and even bowlers.
What's that? A hat? Crazy, funky, junky hat, overslept, hair unsightly, trying to look like Keira Knightley. We've been there, we've done that, we see right through your funky hat.
Netted veils might make a return as well, serving as a fun contrast to our more minimal makeup choices. With coquettish animals like sheep, kittens, deer, and rabbits becoming popular motifs in the fashion space, I think we'll soon see a rejection of that cuteness for the sake of rebellion, and what could cause more shock and awe than a creepy, crawly creature. On the more approachable side of things will be caterpillars, ladybugs, grasshoppers, and butterflies, things a cute little fairy tending her garden would be drawn to. But on the opposite side of the spectrum will be beetles, spiders, scorpions, and slugs, what a witch would pluck out of a swamp and brew into a potion. It just depends on what your vibe is. Interpretations of these insects could be experimental or literal, showing up on clothing, jewelry, and nails, basically anywhere they would land in real life. You've probably noticed an increase in food-related motifs in the design space over the last few years, from sardines on pillowcases, to tomatoes on t-shirts, to espresso-flavored lip glosses. The fashion and beauty space have taken inspiration from food for decades, but the recent influx can be attributed to the current state of the global economy, where certain foods are now seen as a luxury, a marker not only of taste and refinement, but wealth and stability. Instead of the usual jewel tones or pastels, I think the most popular colors this coming year will bring to mind your favorite meals, utilizing sensory marketing to give you an emotional attachment to the product. We've already seen this play out with the popularity of shades like butter yellow, cherry red, and pistachio green this past season, but I feel like it'll only pick up from there, with colors inspired by various fruits, vegetables, and spices. Think martini olive green, smoked paprika red, or plum purple. Because of the 2000s influence on fashion in the 2020s, capris and jorts have made a huge comeback in the mainstream. And while the two will continue to be worn in 2026, I think we'll begin to see other mid-calf silhouettes trickle into the fashion scene, like gauchos and culottes. Although often used interchangeably, technically speaking, they're different garments with widely different histories. Culottes, or fitted knee breeches, were styled after fashions worn by European nobility and continued to be worn by the upper class for centuries. In the 1700s, they were incorporated into military uniforms, with wider silhouettes often being worn by sailors. And because of this formal association, the style was adopted by early American politicians, including George Washington. In the mid-1800s, knee-length silhouettes fell out of fashion in favor of trousers, but they returned with a vengeance at the turn of the century, where they were worn by both men and women as sports attire. This marked a major turning point in women's fashion, as it allowed them more freedom of movement than they'd ever seen before, but pants still weren't considered appropriate for the day-to-day. This resulted in the popularization of the split skirt in the 1920s, which provided all of the comfort of a pair of breeches, but with the illusion of a skirt, and the wide-legged style served as the basis for the culotte we know today. Gauchos, on the other hand, get their name from South American cowboys, whose traditional attire included ponchos and bombatas, loose-fitting trousers. The look was more about function than fashion, which appealed to American women of the 1960s, who were fighting for increased independence. That, combined with the era's emphasis on multiculturalism, which saw the fashion industry pulling inspiration from across the globe, brought gauchos into the mainstream, where they remained until the 1990s. In the 2000s, there was a big push for knee-length bottoms like capris, leggings, gauchos, and culottes, and they became a staple of both casual and formal wear. Culottes hung on until the early 2010s, where they were often styled in a workwear context, but by the middle of the decade, they had died out. Now that it's a solid decade later, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a comeback, especially as part of the sort of ugly chic librarian look popularized by the likes of Miu Miu, Prada, Sandy Liang, and Shu Shu Tong.
Those shorts or skirts?
They're gaucho pants. I got them on sale.
If you're still struggling to understand the difference between the two styles, think of it this way. Culottes are knee-length and intended to resemble a skirt, while gauchos are simply a wide-leg pant of the same length. Remember, they should be loose, not fitted, as that volume is what differentiates them from capris. But again, don't be surprised if you see them being sold under each other's names. Speaking of volume, with bloomer pants and barrel jeans picking up steam in the latter half of 2025, it's only a matter of time before we bring back their baggier big brother, the harem pant. Inspired by various styles found throughout Asia and the Middle East, unlike Western trousers, harem pants were cinched around the ankle, creating a more exaggerated silhouette that held exotic connotations. Paul Poiret attempted to introduce the style to his clients in the 1910s, but it didn't really catch on. And it wasn't until the 1980s that they became a true fad, fully representing the decade's emphasis on excess with their loud colors and impressive size. Around the same time, musician MC Hammer popularized a version of the harem pant that featured a drop crotch, which eventually became known as hammer pants. And they were not only a part of his signature look, but defined a very specific era of music and pop culture. The harem pant, as well as its dropped crotch iteration, had a resurgence in the 2010s, being worn by a variety of celebrities including Justin Bieber, Gwen Stefani, and Kim Kardashian. They were also seen on the runway, on the streets of New York Fashion Week, and in the growing blogger scene, where they added some intrigue to the decade's otherwise minimalistic fashion sense. With style in the 2020s being so experimental, I think harem pants are going to fit right in, and we're probably going to see the most variation to date in regard to styles, with girly, sporty, edgy, and dressy versions hitting store shelves. And let's not forget the added benefit of them being incredibly comfortable. Bows have been one of the biggest trends of the 2020s, appearing on ponytails, purses, sweaters, and shoes. But in 2026, they're going to transition out of their cutesy connotation into something a bit more grown up. This will bring about the return of the lavalier blouse, also known as the pussybow blouse. First popularized during the court of King Louis XIV, the pussybow went in and out of fashion repeatedly over the years. But it wasn't until the 1980s that they developed their current reputation as a symbol of female independence. It was around that time that women were becoming a more prominent force in the political sphere, with the likes of Nancy Reagan, Princess Diana, and Margaret Thatcher. They all had a penchant for pussybow blouses, with Thatcher saying that she felt they helped soften her image. This idea trickled into the mainstream, and as women entered the previously male-dominated workforce en masse, they began wearing pussybow blouses to not only be fashionable, but as a way of highlighting their femininity. There aren't many of us who are genuinely excited about going into work every day. It's just something that we have to do, which I think is going to result in a lot of romanticization of the office. We've already seen other 1980s workwear trends like neckties, glasses, and blazers reemerge in the mainstream. So it's only a matter of time before pussy bows return too. They might read as old-fashioned, something your granny would wear, but I think people in 2026 will play with it in interesting ways, upping the size of the bows, or using unusual fabrics. As you've probably been able to tell, trends of the 1980s will have the biggest influence on fashion in 2026. And while the more avant-garde aspects of the era will be prioritized, like the padded shoulders, loud accessories, and extreme color, its more casual elements will start popping up as well. Something similar happened back in the 2010s, with pop culture in general having a fascination for 80s music, movies, and fashion. At the time, DIY was on the rise, and people were hacking up their old t-shirts to make something new. By cutting off the sleeves and chopping off the collar, you had yourself a muscle tee, which made your dad's hand-me-downs a lot cooler. Eventually, mainstream brands caught on to the trend, and you could find pre-made muscle tees in a variety of slogans and prints, with the most coveted featuring 80s rock groups like AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Van Halen, and Metallica, who ironically enough also wore muscle tees back in the day. In 2026, I think we'll see a more dressy version of the muscle tee become popular, serving as a cool but casual basic, something to throw on when you want to look like you didn't even try. They'll still show side boob, but there won't be as much of a grungy DIY quality to them. I also think muscle tees play into the super skinny look that's been on the rise lately because of Ozempic, with a super loose shirt being a great way of slyly implying, oh, this used to fit, but it doesn't anymore. While some people in the 2010s were brave enough to wear their muscle tees without anything underneath, most used them as more of a layering piece. But a regular old bra wouldn't do, so the more casual bralette was worn instead. These were designed to be seen, and it eventually got to the point that we were letting all of our clothing hang off of us just to ensure everyone got a good look at what we were wearing underneath. Underwear as outerwear has only become more socially acceptable since then, but I feel like the bra options are surprisingly lacking. I mean, the kids are saying 2026 is going to be the year we go back to 2016. Perhaps it's time we bring back bralettes and bustiers? There's been a rise in conservative movements worldwide, and that's guaranteed to have an impact on the fashion industry, with more traditionally feminine garments making their way into the global market. Pinafores were originally introduced as a protective covering while performing housework, kind of similar to an apron. It eventually segued from function to fashion in the 1950s, where it became a popular layering piece. I think it'll serve the same purpose in 2026, with people buying a pinafore to mix and match with their existing wardrobe. And it won't look out of place with popular pastimes of the decade like crocheting, baking, and gardening. To tie into this sort of retro look, I think we'll see the return of modest mid-century shoe styles, namely saddle shoes. Although worn by both men and women, they were most often associated with schoolgirls, and considering other shoes with a similar connotation, like ballet flats and Mary Janes, have become popular in the last few years, this might be the final piece of the puzzle. Although technically a more casual day-to-day shoe, I could see it being adapted for more formal occasions with different colorways and heel heights. The fact that the shoe was last popular in the early 2010s as part of the twee hipster aesthetic certainly helps its case, as up-and-coming 20-somethings can't seem to get enough of that time period. A decade ago, we might have gone to a museum or to the movies when we needed to entertain ourselves, but these sort of activities have only become more and more pricey in the 2020s, so people have fully committed to their at-home crafts. I could see crochet becoming even more popular than it is now, not only because it allows for true self-expression, but also guarantees the quality of the garment is up to your own standards. No questions about ethicality or sustainability. Crochet in general has already been trending in the 2020s, but I think 2026 will see the emergence of filet crochet, which looks a touch more polished and retro than what we're used to, like if lace and knit had a baby. Sure, you might look like a doily, but a very pretty doily.
But I think I'm gonna go change, cause
No, don't. You look beautiful. You look like a doily.
With the economy in a downward spiral, this will be the year of less frivolous expenses. So instead of spending money on a blowout, we'll spend an hour braiding our hair. It'll be a way of subtly showing off your skills and creativity, and you can rest easy knowing that no one else will have your exact hairstyle. I could also see braided motifs moving from our heads onto clothing itself, adding a unique texture that will give an ensemble a sort of rustic feel. Fringe details have been incredibly popular in the 2020s, but this coming year, I think we'll take them in a slightly more elevated direction that takes notes from a variety of Asian cultures. These frilly tassels will make their way onto necklaces, keychains, skirts, and shoes, where they'll add texture, movement, and some much-needed whimsy. I feel like they'll be most popular as a belt edition, giving the illusion of being tied up, which could be a tongue-in-cheek ode to the current social climate. Another Asian motif that I think will break into the mainstream are frog closures, a decorative fascinating that originated in China. I attribute this rise in popularity to two factors. The first being Adidas limited edition New Year's jackets. Released in several colors, they quickly became one of the most coveted items of the last year, becoming synonymous with wealth, culture, and spontaneity, as the only way you could get your hands on one was by literally flying to China. As we predicted a few years back, military jackets are also all the rage nowadays, and wouldn't you know it, they also have frog closures. Although easiest to incorporate onto tops and jackets, I could see the motif making its way elsewhere. Another trend we correctly predicted the rise of were buttons, which have been used as a colorful and whimsical addition to clothing and accessories. In 2026, statement-making buttons will continue to be incorporated into garments, but they'll be less superfluous, serving an actual functional purpose. The biggest selling point will be their potential for variation, how using different button combinations will result in a different silhouette. There will still be a sense of familiar quirkiness, but also notes of futurism, with this utilitarian quality not only giving you more cost per wear, but helping you feel as though you'll be prepared for anything that comes your way. This sort of multi-purpose functionality might extend to other types of closures as well, like zippers and buckles. The 2020s have seen several it bags come and go, like the Chloe Paddington, the Balenciaga City, and the Saint Laurent Mombasa. As curation becomes a greater moniker of taste, uniqueness will have more cultural capital than name recognition. This will usher in the return of fabric bags, which have the potential to tell a better story than the mass-manufactured purse sold at every shopping mall. Animal prints have been a staple of the 2020s. First cow, then cheetah, then deer, then zebra, then cow again. I don't see that slowing down in 2026, but maybe we'll start taking inspiration from some less conventional animals. Just like clothing, certain dog breeds go in and out of fashion. In the 2000s, everyone wanted a Chihuahua or a Pomeranian. In the 2010s, pugs and doodles were all the rage. And in the first half of the 2020s, wiener dogs have been near inescapable. Lately, I've been seeing signs that Dalmatians are the next hot dog breed, being presented not only as an extremely well-behaved companion, but a fashionable one as well. While we won't be taking it as far as Cruella de Vil, I could definitely see Dalmatian spots becoming the next it print. They're a bit more interesting than your standard polka dot, but not quite as commonplace as cow print, nor as untamed as a tiger. And you know what they say, dogs are man's best friend, and who wouldn't want to match their bestie? In recent months, cowhide and pony hair have emerged as a more elevated take on animal print, and I think this interest in raw, natural textiles will see people gravitate towards the fluffy look of sheepskin. It'll be all about texture, with woolen curls, crimps, and coils appearing on clothing. I think natural shades of white and brown will see the most longevity, like we'll basically be cosplaying as sheep, but I could also see people experimenting with more colorful iterations as well. What fashion trends are you most looking forward to in 2026? I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!